Thanksgiving is seen as a quintessentially American holiday that celebrates the prosperity that can be achieved through working together, and has been celebrated for centuries. But did you know that it's not only celebrated in America? Here are 5 places outside of North America that celebrate the American style of Thanksgiving, and one that may predate North American Thanksgiving altogether. Thanksgiving in America started as a celebration after the Pilgrims' first successful harvest in the New World. This original feast lasted 3 days, with the people from the Wampanoag joining in the festivities, completely unaware that their way of life would change forever. Thanksgiving in America is the commercialized and capitalist holiday that is parading itself as the modern version of harvest festivals that have been celebrated all around the world for thousands of years. Location number 1 is in Leiden in the Netherlands. The Pilgrims sailed from Plymouth, England in 1620 to set up the Plymouth colony in what is today Plymouth, Massachusetts. But before departing from England, the Pilgrims had spent 11 years in religious exile in Leiden, with many of the original congregation working while bolstering their numbers. Despite being on the other side of the Atlantic in a completely separate country, and the only connection being that some exiled Bible bashers started a recurring party years after they left, the people of Leiden still feel a strong connection to the Pilgrims that stayed with them to celebrate American Thanksgiving in their own way. The people of Leiden gather in a 900-year-old church known as Peter's Kirk to celebrate the perseverance and good fortunes of the early American settlers, over 400 years later and half a world away. Next up, we have Liberia in Africa. In the 19th century, the United States founded Liberia as a part of the American Colonization Society, which basically decided that they weren't racist, they have no problem with black people being free, as long as those black people were not free near the rest of us white people. Their terrible idea was to send the free black people of America back to where they came from, despite the vast majority of them having been born in America, raised on American soil, and had no desire to leave. In the 40 years before the American Civil War, there were more than 15,000 freed American slaves and black people that were born free in America who were relocated to the Liberian colony. These people brought many aspects of their American culture to the African continent, including the use of outdated and functionally useless imperial systems of measurement, as well as the American Thanksgiving tradition as it was in the early to mid-19th century, before Abraham Lincoln proclaimed that Thanksgiving was an official holiday for all of the United States in 1863. Thanksgiving in Liberia is celebrated in a similar way to the way that people in Leiden celebrate it. The celebrations generally begin in Baptist churches and other places of worship for a service, after which fresh fruits of the harvest are auctioned off before the people of Liberia go home to feast. Liberians celebrate their Thanksgiving Day by eating mashed cassava, chicken, jollof rice, and other typical foods from West Africa, as opposed to the turkey and potatoes you'll see in American Thanksgivings. Thanksgiving in Liberia is not seen by everyone as something to be celebrating. Many Liberians feel they only celebrate Thanksgiving because of colonization, and a lot of people in the country today are wrestling with the history associated with the settlers from another continent coming to establish control over an indigenous population. Third on our list is Norfolk Island, an external territory of Australia in the Pacific Ocean, about 1,400 kilometres east of Byron Bay, the home of Chris Hemsworth, Parkway Drive, and Australia's stoner capital. Norfolk Island was populated by the descendants of the mutineers from the British ship the HMS Bounty. The mutineers and several Tahitians fled to nearby Pitcairn Island in 1790, and by 1856 their descendants had moved to the larger Norfolk Island. The story of Thanksgiving on Norfolk Island starts with a diplomatic representative of the United States, Isaac Robinson, wanting to celebrate Thanksgiving. He observed the holiday by decorating the pews of the All Saints Church with palm leaves and lemons. When Robinson died at sea, the islanders kept up the practice, which was shored up by American sailors in later decades. The American whaling ships that made port on the island in the late 1800s brought with them a constant reinvigoration of the tradition of celebrating Thanksgiving, as well as American-style recipes such as pumpkin pie and cornbread. Almost 150 years later, the tradition continues with the people of Norfolk Island holding services in their churches. Attendees of these church services often place fresh fruit and vegetables along the aisles of their churches, as a testament to the almost complete agricultural self-sufficiency of the people of the island. Second to last on our list is Brazil. Thanksgiving in Brazil, or Dia de Ação de Graças, is celebrated to express gratitude and appreciation to the Almighty for abundant harvests and the blessings He bestows from on high to people that are often left impoverished by the apathy of the upper classes. The tradition was established in 1949, and later having the date standardized in 1966, the people of Brazil celebrate Thanksgiving by attending masses and church, and by offering thoughts and prayers to their God on high to please strike down the people hoarding wealth and redistribute it among the masses, or something like that. The feast prepared is very similar to that in North America, including turkeys, potato, and pumpkin pie. But because Brazil doesn't have cranberries, they make a jaboticaba sauce. The jaboticaba fruit, being very similar to that of a cranberry, lends itself well to the recreation. While following most of the North American Thanksgiving traditions, it wouldn't be Brazil without putting on their own colourful and flamboyant twist to the holiday, by ending the day of church masses with carnivals. Last on our list is Grenada, a small island country in the West Indies. Thanksgiving in Grenada marks the anniversary of the Caribbean and American intervention and subsequent coup removing the People's Revolutionary Government from power. Grenada gained independence from the United Kingdom in 1974, and after a democratic election, a man by the name of Eric Gary became Prime Minister. Multiple coups ensued, leaders were executed, and everyone rejoiced. The celebration of Thanksgiving began when American soldiers in the autumn of 1983 told the locals about the holiday, and wanting to show thanks and gratitude, the local populations planned over 100 small celebrations across the island. The meals at the time were as close to the meals that the soldiers would have had in America, at least as far as they could expect from an isolated island with almost no notice. This meant that many of the foodstuffs were canned, and almost all of the ingredients were foreign to the islands, and were strange foods as far as the locals were concerned. The traditions have stuck around, and on October 25th every year, the people of Grenada celebrate Thanksgiving in honour of the American soldiers who helped them regain some semblance of democratic freedom. For most of the world, Thanksgiving is still considered an almost exclusively North American tradition. But there are places around the world that celebrate a similar holiday for various reasons. And there are still hundreds of other similar harvest festivals celebrated in almost every country in the world, although many of them have nothing to do with the American holiday. So eat your food, be thankful for what you've got, and fight with your drunk uncle who thinks he's somehow superior to women and people with darker skin than his, despite being overweight, unfit, and failing at life in just about every measurable way. Enjoy the food coma, kids.